Okay, let's jump right into a really wild idea. What if that feeling that gets you out of bed in the morning, what if it worked just like gravity? Seriously, this is the radical idea from Dr. Michael Lukens, and it's a completely new way of looking at what actually motivates us. So yeah, let's dig in.
So let's really lean into this. What if your emotions, your motivations, what if they literally operated like a fundamental force of nature? I mean, just like gravity, this invisible pull that shapes your entire personal universe, guiding every single move you make. It's a pretty huge concept, right? So to really get a handle on it, we've got to look at where this whole thing came.
And here's the thing, this whole story, it doesn't actually start with a theory. It starts with some pretty remarkable results. There's this therapeutic method called core issue completion therapy, or CICT for short, and it was built out of this physics idea. Now, what's really turning heads are the reports coming out of it. We're talking about people experiencing sweeping changes in their lives, with outcomes that almost always exceeded what they even hoped for. I mean, when you hear claims that bold, you've got to take a closer look, right? You have to ask what's really going on here.
And just look at the range of stuff this method has been used for. I mean, we are talking about some of the absolute toughest challenges people face: trauma, grief, eating disorders, substance use, deep-seated anxiety and depression. So you have to wonder, how could one single approach be so effective across such a huge spectrum of issues? It really suggests that there has to be some kind of deep, fundamental principle at work.
Okay, so to understand the therapy, we've got to dive into the theory that's powering it all. Let's get into the physics of our feelings.
All right, this quote really gets to the heart of it. You know how in physics there are the four fundamental forces that basically run the universe? Well, this theory proposes a fifth one. But this one, it only applies to living things. The idea is that emotioning, the actual process of having an emotion, it isn't just a feeling. It's the force. It's the engine that moves us through our world.
Let's try an analogy. Picture your life as its own little solar system. All the important stuff, people, goals, memories, you name it, they're like the planets and stars. And each one has a different mass, right? A different level of importance to you. Well, emotioning is the gravity in that system. It's the invisible pull that all those meaningful things exert on you, guiding your path, pulling you towards some things and, pushing you away from others.
So, okay, how does this force actually work in practice? Well, our first key idea here actually gives us a kind of formula for our own motivation. And here it is. It looks like a physics equation. E equals a function of ma. So, what on earth does that mean? Let's break it down. E stands for emotioning. That's the motivational force we've been talking about. M is for meaning, basically how much something really truly matters to you. And A is for action. That's the impulse, the thing you feel compelled to do because of that meaning.
So, to put it another way, that force that moves you, whether it's getting out of bed, picking up the phone to call a friend, or even avoiding a tough conversation, it's all a direct result of how meaning and action are working together. The key here is that they're not separate things. They are completely fundamentally linked.
And this leads us straight to our second big idea. And this one really puts you in the driver's seat. It's all about that M in the formula, meaning. Because as it turns out, you are the meaning maker.
So here's the deal. According to this theory, meaning isn't something that's just out there in the world waiting for you to find it. It's not something that objects or events just have. Nope. It's something we give to them. We're not just passively soaking up meaning. We are actively, constantly creating it, all the time, around the clock. You could say we're basically meaning-making machines.
Let's make this super concrete with an example. All right, look at these two things: a historical document, the US Constitution, and a coral snake. Now, if you strip everything away, one is just ink on paper, and the other is just a reptile. Their real power, well, that comes from the meaning that we create for them.
Now watch how this works. For, say, a civics teacher, the Constitution might create a meaning of freedom and order, right? And that generates an emotional force of respect, maybe even inspiration. But for an anarchist, that exact same piece of paper could create a meaning of oppression. And that generates a totally different emotional force, contempt, maybe anger. See, it's the same object, but because the meaning created is different, the force it generates is completely different, pushing these two people in totally opposite directions. Okay, so that brings us to our third and final key idea. If we're the ones creating the meaning that generates these emotional forces, what happens when that force is really painful? What do we do then? Well, this is where that therapy method, CICT, gets right to the heart of it. And it's all about what's called the power of not refusing.
Now, this is a really critical distinction, so listen close. The theory argues that when we get stuck, the problem isn't the painful emotion itself. It's not the grief or the fear or the anger. The real problem, the thing that keeps us spinning our wheels, is all the energy we spend resisting it, fighting it, pushing it away. So it's not the experience itself that gets us stuck, it's our refusal of the experience that blocks us from moving forward.
Just think about how this plays out in our own lives, right? When you resist a feeling, everything just stalls. All your energy gets tied up in that internal fight. But when you allow for what the theory calls completion, which just means letting the emotional process run its natural course, that's when you get your freedom of movement back. All that energy is suddenly freed up and you can actually, finally, move on.
And really, this is the ultimate goal here. Just take a second and imagine what that would be like, to be in a state of no refusal, to be able to not refuse anything that comes up inside you. The theory is very clear. This isn't about being weak or passive. It's actually the ultimate source of personal power and real freedom.
All right, so we started this whole journey with a therapy that's reporting some incredible results, and we ended up digging into the physics of our own inner universe. So let's wrap this up and put all the pieces together.
So here are the 3 big takeaways from all this. Number 1, your emotions aren't just feelings, they are a real force, like gravity, that moves you. And it can be understood with that formula, E equals a function of ma. Number 2, you are the one creating the meaning that generates this force in the first place. And number 3, the path to real change isn't about fighting your feelings, it's about letting them complete their cycle. And all of that leaves us with one last big question to think about for yourself. When you really look at your own life, at all the things that pull you forward and all the things that seem to hold you back, what force is it that truly moves you?